This might be hard to believe, but it's never been a better time to start or scale an email marketing agency in the e-commerce niche today. So if you're maybe a freelancer, you already own an agency and you're struggling to grow, you're struggling to get more clients, you're struggling to get more leads, you're struggling to set up systems. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through how I would scale to $30,000 a month if I was starting over today. If you don't know me, my name is Will. I'm one of the founders of Flow Candy. Flow Candy is a scaled up seven-figure Klaviyo agency. We've worked with over 500 brands now. I've been doing this for over 10 years. So I have a lot of experience building out systems, building out teams. And today I'm going to walk you through what I would do if I started over. So with that said, I have a full flow map in today's video. I'm going to walk you through it all step by step here, what I would do if I was starting over. And if you've watched some of my content before, most people, they think that they need like more leads. They need to be doing cold email. They need to be doing more on Upwork. They need to be doing more content on YouTube, LinkedIn, and stuff like that. And the reality is most freelancers and e-commerce agencies today, they don't have a traffic problem. They have a positioning problem, which is really what's causing their traffic problem or their leads problem or their clients problem, however you want to frame it. Okay. And where I think most e-commerce email marketing agencies trip up is they don't really know their customer. All right. And so I'm going to spend the next, couple minutes talking about this and why it's so important. All right. If you are trying to build an e-commerce email marketing agency today, or really any agency or really any B2B services or SaaS or whatever, anything B2B, you need to understand that there's really four core segments of the market. There's the entrepreneurial segment, which is doing under $1 million normally. There's the SMB, which is small to medium-sized businesses, which is roughly about up to 10 million. Then you have the mid-market, which at the lower tranche of the mid-market, we're talking 10 to 30 million. Maybe the uppers, it gets into the 100 millions, 300 million, 500 million. Once you get over the 500 million, you start to get into enterprise. These are like the big publicly traded companies that are doing billions and billions of dollars, like your Googles, your Apples, your Microsofts, stuff like that. They're certainly at the upper band of the enterprise, and then the lower band is, anybody doing over $1 billion, a lot of these publicly traded companies that have hundreds and hundreds of employees. Okay. And the reason I start here is because everything is different, in my opinion, at each one of these phases. Okay. The entrepreneurial customer or client it's totally different pain points, totally different desires, totally different needs than the enterprise. And it's really hard to service all four of them at the same time. In my opinion, you really need to pick one that's your core, and maybe you can float between one or two, but it's almost impossible to do all four at the same time. Okay. And why that's important is because picking one of these, or just understanding where your current clients are at or where your current leads are at, really helps you nail down an ICP. And in my opinion, you have to nail an ICP, an ideal customer profile, before you can move on to anything marketing. Okay. And this is where a lot of people get stuck because they don't do this and they just pick the same ICP, or they don't even have an ICP and they don't even do the positioning, which I'm about to talk about. And that causes them issues around getting traffic, getting leads, getting clients. Okay. And so when I say you need an ICP, you need to know obviously their company size, the tech stack, the employee count, the revenue, their pain points, their desires, but you really want to get deep. Okay. Like this is, sort of the Bible at Flow Candy. We know what frustrates them the most. We know why they wouldn't buy, why they would delay, what is the trigger that causes them to buy, what are they skeptical of. Okay. The more you can understand your customer and the pain points, or your potential clients, your potential customers, the much more calibrated and deeper and your marketing and sales can get, and your positioning, which can really help you get more clients, get those higher ticket, higher pricing paying clients, and really scale past that 30K mark. Okay. So it's really, really important that you do this. Okay. Figure out your ICP, and then you can figure out your positioning. All right. And this is another thing that I see a lot of e-commerce email marketing agencies sort of screwing up today. All right. A lot of them do what I call the old way. All right. Which is the classic formula. I help X get Y in Z amount of time. And this formula definitely can work in some markets. But in the e-commerce email marketing agency world or freelancer world today, it's just way too competitive. This might have worked like 10 years ago. It certainly worked 10 years ago when I was starting out on Upwork and stuff like this as a freelancer before I even started my agency. But now there's just so many people doing. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of people doing this. I see it every day when I get on LinkedIn. I see it all the time on Upwork. Okay, and they're typically following the same old formula. Like, I help D2C brands increase their sales with email marketing in 90 days. I help build retention for D2C brands or something like that. Okay. And the reality is like that, like, there's just so many people doing that. It's hard to stand out. It's hard to even move on to marketing if your positioning is not dialed in. So if you're interested in repositioning, I want to introduce you to a way I would recommend you to position. If you want to get clients that are paying, that will sign up for you right away, that'll pay higher prices and will help you scale past 30K. Okay. And what I call this is the category of one formula. Okay. So this puts you in a category of one. If you're over here saying, I help D2C brands increase their sales with email marketing, okay, there's certainly people that are having success there right now. Don't get me wrong, but they're scaled up, right? If you're watching this and you're under 30K, you're not scaled up. So you need to position yourself. You need to niche down to really get traction in the market today, okay? And so what I would recommend is this category of one positioning, all right? Where basically you have an instantly clear and differentiated headline, all right? You declare the problem and you talk about why you're different. You give 3 core agency promises on why you're different that hopefully anchor back onto why they solved that problem in that headline. And if you're confused right now, I'm going to walk you through an example, okay? So imagine if you, instead of saying, I help D2C brands increase their sales with email marketing brands, imagine if you said, hey, we help fashion brands double their email newsletter revenue. Why do we do that? Because we found that fashion brands, they have to constantly send campaigns because they have new drops, there's new seasons, there's inventory shifts. There's also unique segments that need to be built based off gender and size and maybe location. And a lot of agencies are not set up to do this. And a lot of brands also don't have this team in-house that can do the strategy, do the workload, and has the bandwidth to turn those newsletters into consistent revenue. And why we're different, why we can help you do this, is because we're all in on fashion. This is the only market we work with. We are newsletter focused. We can help you build flows and pop-ups and stuff like that. But we think that brands are leaving a lot of money on the table with their newsletter. And so that's why we specifically chose to double down on newsletters to help brands like yours double the revenue. And hey, if it doesn't work out and you don't like it and it's not a good fit, we're not one of these agencies that sucks, that's going to lock you into a forever retainer. We'll give you your money back, no questions asked. After 30 days, if it's not a good fit, you don't like it, we'll rip up the contract, we'll send you your money back and give you a full refund. Okay. Now, you tell me, all right? You tell me, if you are an apparel store owner and you hear the pitch that I gave versus the pitch that 99% of the market is giving right now in e-commerce email marketing agency world, which is, I help D2C brand, or some sort of variant of, I help D2C brands increase their sales with email marketing. Which one are they going to go with? Which one are they going to be more attracted to? Okay. Let me tell you, as someone who has a lot of experience in this market, it's almost 99% of the time this type of positioning. And hey guys, if you like what you've heard so far, okay, and you're nodding your head and you're like, hey, this is really good, this is helping me, I want to invite you to a new school community I just launched. It's called Email Marketing Agency School, where I go into way more depth on what I just talked about, how you can position yourself better. I also go give way more resources and tips and stuff on some of the stuff I'm about to talk later in this video. And people are already getting wins in this community. Just last week, we got this guy who said he followed one of the templates I recommended, and he closed a $5,000 upsell. So literally, the community paid for itself within the first couple days. He just basically followed this script. And another girl that's in our community followed another one of my templates and one of my tools, and she was able to sign a client. So this is the only community that's actually helping email marketing agencies and freelancers and people of the like actually build a successful email marketing agency. The reality is there's a lot of content out there on how to do email marketing for your clients. There's also a lot of sort of generic content out there on how to build like an agency or a digital marketing agency, but there's nothing specific for email marketing agencies, freelancers, lifecycle consultants, retention consultants, CRM experts, stuff like that. So if this is something, if this is a community that is interested in you, I would, there's a link in the description. I would go ahead and click to join, because this is the best community for you if you're looking to grow. And I hope I'll see you on the inside. All right, back to this. All right. So this is why I said, okay, it's super important to nail your positioning, because once you nail your positioning, all right, you can then move on to marketing. See, this is the problem with most, not just email marketing agencies, most businesses, all right? They move on to marketing, all right? But they haven't nailed their positioning and they haven't nailed their ICP. And because of that, their marketing falls flat. How many of you are probably watching this video and be like, I've sent 10,000 cold emails and nothing happened? It's you sent 10,000 cold emails and nothing happened because you had the same positioning that everybody else does. All right. And you don't realize that if you're just pitching cold emailing, cold LinkedIn, or whatever, all these D2C brands on how you help their sales with email marketing, you don't realize that they're getting a message like that almost every day. All right. And not even that. On top of that, they're getting the same pitch from CRO agencies, from social media agencies, from website developers, from technology partners. So there's pitch after pitch after pitch, especially when you move into the mid-market and some of these scaled up mid-markets, SMB enterprise type stores, that everyone wants to talk about, like the Athletic Greens, the Dr. Squatches, the True Classic Teas, all these like almost borderline unicorn Shopify Plus stores. These guys are getting pitched all day long. So you have to do something to stand out. You have to position. And by repositioning and really niching down, you can get very, very creative with your marketing. And here's the reality, okay? When it comes to marketing, all right, to get to $30,000 a month in today's market, you only need to nail one of these, okay? You only need to nail one of these, all right? And on my journey to scaling my business, my email marketing agency over 7 figures, and working with hundreds of clients and having a 30 plus person team now, I've basically tried all of these, okay? And we're not, that doesn't mean we're actually doing all of these things, okay? But I wanted to talk about like which ones, like if you nail your positioning, which ones are the best and which ones I would recommend when you're just starting out, okay? Now, most people, they start out with bad positioning and then they start out with like cold email, okay? They're cold emailing with a bad position, or they're going on Upwork or something like that, which is a great place to get started if you're just going to, if you're basically just trying to get cash in the door, all right? But the reality is, like, these types of marketing channels, it's all about chase, okay? What you really want is you really want marketing that attracts the ideal prospect. It attracts the customer. And why is that important? It's important because when you do that, all right, when you are bringing in leads where you attract them, they're way more likely to buy because they already know, like, and trust you, okay? And if you can create really good positioning and then come up with really good marketing that is attracting those leads, they're going to show up on the calls which I'm going to talk about in a bit, way more likely to buy. And you're going to need to, not only that, you also can charge higher prices, okay? Because you have a differentiated offer where they know, like, and trust you. They're not as price sensitive, okay? So this is like one of the key things to really being able to close more clients and have higher prices when closing clients, okay? And that's why I really started with positioning, okay? Because that's the unlock. And that's why some of you sitting today who are like, well, I can't move past like $1,000 clients or like hourly clients that just want to, you know, charge me hourly. It's because your positioning sucks. Okay. And you're like everybody else. And you're not in a category of one. And when you're in a category of one, you can charge more premium prices. Okay. And you attract more premium clients. All right. So that's why it's so important. All right. But with that said, um, you can do upward, you can do cold email, but really, I think the magic becomes once you nail your positioning, you can really start pushing on stuff like organic, paid ads, and Dream 100, which is the Dream 100 is popularized by the book by Chet Holmes, The Ultimate Sales Machine, which is where you formulate your Dream 100 clients, the 100 clients that you would love to have. And you go out and you do whatever it takes to get them through, like cold outreach, prospecting, stuff like that. Now, the problem is some of you might be listening to this like, well, Will, I had a Dream 100. Well, the problem is your Dream 100 was the Dream 100 of everyone else. It's like, oh, my Dream 100 is AG1, or my Dream 100 is Groons, or my Dream 100 is Skims, like these mega, mega scaled up Shopify Plus stores, okay? But imagine if your positioning is something like this, like we help fashion brands double their newsletter revenue, okay, or some sort of variant of that, and your ICP is only fashion brands, okay, your Dream 100 is going to be much, much, much more granular than everybody else, okay. So that's why that's why I come back to the positioning, 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 positioning. It's so important. If you nail the positioning, the marketing gets a lot easier down funnel. All right. And the real problem, like some of the problems you guys are having in marketing right now, come back to the positioning. It's not necessarily a marketing problem. Excuse me, it is a positioning problem. Okay. Once you nail the marketing, though, all right. And like again, like I said, you only need to do one of these. All right. You only need to really scale up or do one of these channels effectively. All right. To get to 30K, in my opinion. And honestly, you might even be able to get to 60 or 100K with just one of these. Okay. Like there's such, if you get the positioning and you just do one very, very well, a lot of times that is enough to fuel the agency for years, to be honest with you. So really focus on one of them. And if you're kind of stuck, you're like, I don't know what to do. I would go back. Well, first I'll work on your positioning, but then I would go back and look at where your best clients have come from. That's what I did. I sat down years ago and went through every single client I worked with, and was like, where did they come from? Where did they come? First they were Upwork or referrals, but eventually we started. I started noticing some trends, and then we were able to scale that up. We got really good at events. Now we're good at content. My agency, Flow Candy, now, but again, it wasn't always the case like that, and really all we had to do was really just nail, at least when I was just starting out as the Upwork funnel, I really just had to nail that. And then eventually I moved on to other channels. But just nail one, just pick one, because then you can move on to sales. And I still see a lot of people doing this wrong too. All right. In the email marketing agency world today, all right, how I recommend people sell, okay? Because people ask me like, hey, Will, like, how do you close clients? What's the sales process? Do you do paid? Do you do free? Like, what's working? And how we do it at my agency, Flow Candy, and how I see a lot of the other agencies that are sort of scaled up, that are around our sort of band of the market, is typically it's a 2-call close. Maybe it's 3 or 4 if certain details need to go over. And certainly if you're pitching, this is why I say it's important to know the four segments. Like if you're into the enterprise, if you're pitching, if your ICP is enterprise clients, it might take 4, 5, 6 calls, and it might take 7, 8, 9 months to close those deals just because those deals take longer. But for a lot of things in the mid market, a lot of things in the SMB and the entrepreneurial segments, all right, you can normally close with 1 or 2 calls, all right. And typically, what happens is there's a discovery call, or disco call, strategy session, breakout session. I've heard it called many different terms, but it's like typically a 10 to 15 minute call, all right, where basically you're qualifying the prospect, um, to see if they're a good fit, if you can actually help them. All right. And typically, when they get on that call, what you want to do is they'll book that call like on your website or something like that, or through like a link. And then they'll typically enter some sort of book a call flow, book a call automation, where you're basically prepping them what to do, what's coming on the call. Like, hey, here's what to expect, confirming the call. Sometimes I've even seen people do manual outreach. I've even seen some people do um, selfie videos. There's all sorts of things to do. But at the very least, you just want to have a 2 or 3 automation, email automation, SMS automation, if you capture their phone number too. Just telling them, hey, you're excited for the upcoming call. Here's what's going to happen. Okay. Then another thing you want to do is you want to start adding things to a pipeline. When I see a lot of agencies or freelancers that are under that in the e-commerce email marketing world that are under 30K at the moment, I ask them, okay, let's pull up your pipeline. They're like, what? They have no idea. They don't know what that is, or they haven't got around to that. If you really want to scale up, certainly into the 7 figures, you need to have some sort of pipeline where you're managing all your leads and what stages they're at. But at the very least, you just want to start getting all of your leads into a pipeline, or all your calls into a pipeline, of some choice. We use Go High Level, but it really doesn't matter. You could use ClickUp, Trello, Asana, Monday, Pipedrive, HubSpot. There's all sorts of pipeline tools out there, to choose from. It's not so much the tool; it is just making sure that you're actually doing it week in and week out. Okay, but once you have the discovery call, all right, you then give a free audit. All right, so this is sort of the free audit is the key, in my opinion, to really uh, getting clients in the door and selling them. And the reality is, I still see a lot of people do this wrong too in the market. Okay. Um, a lot of you might be watching this video if you're already working with clients. You get them on a call, you do an audit, maybe it's free, and you like overload them with information. All right. Because you found all these opportunities to help them grow their account, their Klaviyo account, their Omnisend account, whatever it is. All right. And you're pulling up these big spreadsheets and you're showing them all this, or you're moving around different tabs. And the reality is, a lot of these calls that I see people in the market doing, they're not treating it like a sales call. All right. Really, your free audit, you're happy to link back to that source file, but really, your audit, what you should do is you should really hone in on the 3 big problems that they're having, the 3 big opportunities they're having, 3 big opportunities that they could have to increase their account. And you want to communicate to them what could be the after state if they solved those 3 problems. Okay. And then if they are qualified, and what we do on our audits is we do a check-in. Like, we go, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to fix these problems, or implement some of these solutions? A lot of times they're going to say like 8, 9, 10. Okay. Then you can move on to pitching them and showing them your services. All right. So, and a lot of people just, they don't treat it like sort of a sales call. And these prospects, they want to kind of be sold. They want to be led. They want to know what their solutions are. They kind of understand that it is a sales call. And then if you ask questions like on a scale of 1 to 10, and they're like, it's not really important, I just wanted to check out your audit, then you're not coming across as like just somebody who's pitching them, and you're not wasting their time and you're not wasting your time. And you can just say, oh, well, awesome. I'm glad, I got to meet you. And, if you ever want to like talk again about how to like implement some of these solutions, I'm always down to chat. I'm going to email you this audit and let me know if you have any further questions. Okay. Like it can be a very like easy way to sell or not sell. Okay. Now, the next thing I see people doing wrong in the market is you really only need three products or services, in my opinion, to scale to 30,000, 60,000, maybe even 100,000. Okay. In today's market. All right. And the pricing and the services and the pain and the offers are different based off the segments of the market, whether they're entrepreneurial, SMB, enterprise. They also differentiate across like what your positioning is. Like if you're positioning in, the supplement niche versus like the apparel niche versus like health and beauty versus different tech stacks or locations even. There's all sorts of, based on your positioning, like the actual pricing and services could change. But in my opinion, you only need three core offers. And the first one is like a low ticket downsell. This is like almost like a tripwire product in the e-commerce world, but it's like typically a project that or a product or service that is 10% of your 60 to 90-day projects or monthly recurring projects and can be fulfilled in like 2 weeks. Okay. So think of it like, if you do a 60, 90-day project to overhaul your client's flows, all right, and you charge $5,000 a market, $5,000 a month to do that for SMBs, maybe upper mid market clients, okay, or maybe you charge more. You might do a low ticket downsell for like $500, okay, or no, excuse me, yeah, you can maybe do a low ticket downsell, yeah, for like $500 or something like that. Just something like easy to get them in the door to know, like, and trust you, or you can convert them into one of these 60, 90-day projects or convert them into the monthly recurring projects. And the monthly recurring projects, are typically like newsletters, managing campaigns, or even like fractional advisory services. I've seen that work. Fractional strategy, one-on-one strategy, consulting, stuff like that can work in the recurring. It's basically anything that you're doing in 60 to 90 days that can be put into recurring. Um, the bigger brands, like the big enterprise brands and the upper mid markets, you might be able to sell like A/B testing projects, but for a lot of the lower SMBs, smaller entrepreneur, it doesn't really make sense. But that's a little bit about what I'm seeing in the market, and you really only need three of these, in my opinion. You don't need to come up with all these different service offerings. You need three. Maybe you have different variants within each one. Like maybe in your monthly recurring, you might say, well, you get up to 10 campaigns, or you get up to this amount of hourly blocks, or however you sort of position your pricing, but you really only need three. Okay. And I'm going to talk about in a second why that's important. Okay. Why it's important to keep it simple and have only three. Because how you want to typically close these clients, in my opinion, what works best is you have the audit, and at the end of the audit, there's a link for them to place a deposit to become a new client. Okay. And the deposit too could be very small, like depends on the type of client, but $50, $500, maybe $1,000. And then obviously they would get that money back when you build them and started the project. Okay. But I found this works best for a few reasons. One, it allows you to get the deposit, and then if you use Stripe or something like that, convert the project into a recurring subscription, especially if you're doing one of these 60, 90-day projects or monthly recurring projects. And that just makes things a lot easier on the billing cycle. Now, if you're working with big mid-market brands or enterprise clients, it's a little bit harder to do. Typically, they have procurement departments or compliance departments or legal and accounting departments where Um, and they might even have like net 90 terms or net 30 terms, and you have to invoice them. So it doesn't work at the upper end of the market, but for most of the smaller brands, um, yeah, they're happy to build these projects on credit cards or you know ACH or debit cards or something like that. Okay. Um, so that's why it's really, really important because you can create that subscription and you can also use that deposit to kick off a lot of what's coming next in the operations and fulfillment. Okay. But typically what happens is once they place their deposit, you want to send them to some sort of new client onboarding form. We use Typeform, and you really want to get like a lot of these questions out of the way before they onboard. Okay, you don't want to be asking these questions on an onboarding call. You want to get this out of the way so when you kick off, all right, all of that's underway. Maybe you have to do a few little details, and the kickoff call becomes much more about them and trying to help them get their dreams, their goals, and less about you just trying to extract all this information for them. So really send them to an onboarding form, and you want to be able to know like stuff like their name, obviously their name, email, phone, time zone, and primary point of contact. But you want to get them to invite you to all the apps. So if you need access to Klaviyo or Shopify or OmniSend or Google Analytics or Triple Whale, Facebook, whatever it is you need access to, you want to. And why I like Typeform is because you can create videos to show them how to invite you. Um, and then you just, so that's why I like that. But get them to invite you all to all the apps. So it's really easy and you're not chasing down app invites on the kickoff call. Then you want to get to know their pain points and their goals and their challenges and their vision and more about their customers, more about their competitors, what sets their brand apart, what are the must-haves with design and copy, what are the no-nos, like what can you absolutely not do for my copy and design, learn more about what brands they love, get their brand guidelines, their typefaces, what is their views on discounts and stuff like that. So you have all of this stuff before the kickoff call, so you can tailor the kickoff call to this information, and also so you don't say anything that might like trip up the onboarding. Okay, because in my opinion, churn happens in two places normally in these with these agencies. It normally happens in the first uh, 30 to 60 days, sometimes in the first 30 days, and a lot of times it's just poor onboarding. Okay, and then it might happen typically after month 6 or something like that. If you're unable to convert them to some sort of like recurring project. But if you can get them in recurring and it's a good fit for their agency, a lot of times they'll stay for, I've had some of our clients stay for 5, 6, almost 7 years now, and then, clients are always going to churn. Sometimes they get acquired. That's what happens to a lot of our clients. They're mid-market brands scaling. They get acquired by like private equity or something, and they want to move it in-house. Our positioning is very much centered around helping you move it in-house. Just to, that's why we did it that way. But that's one thing. Sometimes like business, they just there's consolidation. I've seen that where it's like we want to consolidate it with our paid media team. I've also seen some businesses just lose traffic. They can't afford agencies anymore. So there's all sorts of reasons why why clients churn. But and they're like there's always going to be churn. But what you want to prevent is this churn that happens in the first 30 days, which I see a lot of email marketing agencies get stuck with because they really do a poor job onboarding. And like that's when the brands are most skeptical of you. Okay, they're most skeptical of you right after the sale, and you got to remember a lot of times they've been promised some things in the sales process and marketing process, and then they get into the onboarding and they're like, it's a disaster. Okay, this is what I see happening in a lot of the market, and so that's why it's really, really important to have this onboarding form, have it as an automation, remind them if they don't fill it out, get all of this in before kickoff so that when you do the kickoff, all right, it's really, really quite smooth. Now, another thing too that you want to do is once you have that new client onboarding form, you want to have some sort of new client checklist or SOP that gets repeated every time you get a new client. And this includes all the little things that you need to do, um, setting up the client folders, setting up the projects and whatever you're using to track time, adding the client into these different folders and apps, adding the team in, like all the little things you need to do when you kick a client off. You want to have all of this done for the most part and have that onboarding form before you can move in to the kickoff call. All right. And the kickoff call, because you've done all of this stuff, okay, the kickoff call can be much more focused on the client strategy. All right. And I'm going to give you some tips on really how to have an amazing kickoff call. All right. Because I see a lot of people do this wrong too. All right. The kickoff call, you want it to be kind of short, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes tops. Okay. How we like to do it is we like to invite not the whole team, but at least the whole team that's going to be working on their account. Like we like to invite the designers and the developers and stuff and the copywriters, because the client gets to see like this whole team that's working on them on the account, and it kind of impresses them. Okay. And then what we like to do is we just like to review the scope and review the dreams and the pain points they're having. And we're just mirroring back what they put in the form and maybe even what they might have told the sales team during the discovery calls and the audits. Okay. And what that's going to do is going to get the new client nodding and saying, wow, somebody really gets it. Somebody really understands me. I'm so tired of all these agencies that suck and overpromise and underdeliver. But these guys, this email marketing agency, wow, they really understand our pain points and our problems, and they're really listening. And that is like, if you're getting that on your kickoff call, that is a really, really good sign that they're not going to churn in the first 30 days. Okay. Because again, coming back to what I said earlier, churn, this like the first 30 days is where churn can happen sometimes with email marketing agencies that don't really have good systems at onboarding clients. Okay. So you want to get them to review the scope. All right. And then what I like to do is I tell, or we do it in my agency, and I tell other email marketing agency owners and freelancers to do this. Set up the first couple calls, okay? And you can even name the calls. Like call one, we're going to do like settings check. Call two, we're going to go over your flow strategy, your campaign calendar, okay? Just something to get the calls booked so the clients know what the next steps are, okay? So they know exactly what's going to happen in the next 30 days. So they don't have any questions, because a lot of times with a poor onboarding, they're like, okay, we just did that onboarding. I have no idea what we're going to do next. Or like they do the onboarding and then they don't hear from the agency for 3 weeks, and then they churn, and the agency's like, why did they churn? We've been working on their flows this whole time. It's not that you guys aren't working. It's just that you didn't take the time to properly, like, you literally have to hold their hand through the first 30 days of every new client. Okay. So that's what we recommend. And then eventually, don't forget billing too, especially if you do that deposit, because I've seen some people make that mistake where they focus on, they forget to just like bill the client. Okay. And then collect the revenue. Okay. And you also on the kickoff call want to tell them, hey, these are the next steps. We're going to do call one, call two, call three. You're going to get invites into Slack or Figma or whatever you're using, and we're gonna bill the remaining balance of the credit card. Okay, something like that. So there's no surprises about what's going to happen in the next 30 days, and they're crystal clear. And you've put the best foot forward so that like there's really, really a minimal chance of churn. Right now, once you've had like an amazing kickoff call, you can move on to delivery. All right, or fulfillment. And why I told you guys you want to have 3 just simple projects is because that makes delivery so much easier. If you can productize your delivery, all right, eventually you can build much more effective systems. And I know this is where a lot of agencies and freelancers get stuck, is a lot of times, especially if you're a founder, if you founded the agency, or you're still a freelancer, you get stuck in the client delivery. Like you can't, you're like, well, I can't even focus on marketing. I can't even focus on hiring or sales and stuff like this, or even this positioning stuff you're talking about, because I'm just stuck doing all the client work. Okay. And if that's you, all right, um, it's really important that you have these three core offers. All right. And then you systematize that so that every time you sell that low ticket downsell, it's just a master project checklist. You're just duplicating it over and over. Now, we use ClickUp. That's what I teach. That's what we use in my agency. But you can do this in Asana. You can do this in Trello. Again, the tool doesn't matter. It's sort of the philosophy of having um, products that are systemized in sale and systematized in delivery that you can duplicate over and over again. Now, within those projects that you can duplicate over again, because again, you're going to have a project for the low ticket downsell that you duplicate over and over again that has all the checklists, all the SOPs of that product. You have a project you have a 60 to 90-day project, uh, the checklist, master checklist or folder, and you just duplicate that every time you sell that. And again, it has all the SOPs and all the checklists you need. Okay. And same thing with the recurring. All right. So that's why. And within those actual project folders, there's some core SOPs and checklists that you need. All right. So every email marketing agency, it doesn't even matter if it's even B2B, I would say, needs some sort of like new campaign, new flow, new campaign, new automation, new broadcast, whatever it is, whatever tool you're using, but some sort of standardized process for every time you build a flow or send a campaign for a client. Same thing with pop-ups if you're doing that, or forms, A/B tests too. We even do those. Every time you do one of those, it's like the same process every single time. Okay. Transactional emails, if you're doing those. Also, reporting, if you do send client reports, go ahead and standardize it. All right. Make it a checklist or SOP, so that every single time you need to build a report for a client, it's like the same process and it's in every single, well, not every single one, but every project that needs a report, you have that in the folder and you just duplicate and clone it. Okay. Now, after that, like there's a couple other delivery SOPs and checklists I would recommend. Um, don't need all of these, and certainly in my agency, Flow Candy, we have a lot more than these now. But to get to 30K, in my opinion, like you really only need these. You need your project checklist, and you need just some basics on how to serve the client, like how to run client meetings the right way. Okay, how to give feedback to the team, how to update clients in Slack or whatever communication tools, how to do a post-mortem, like when the project closed, or even upsell the client if you need to do that, and then eventually how to do a case study on if you actually achieve the result for the client. All right. So in my opinion, these are like some recommended checklists and SOPs on what I would build within your agency, within the delivery department of your agency. Okay. Now, once you build the delivery, okay, doing this, and again, if you nailed the positioning, you got one good marketing department, or you got one good marketing channel that's bringing in leads, and you're you're able to onboard clients effectively. You're able to close them, onboard them effectively. They don't churn, and you're doing good delivery. Okay, and you're now scaled at $30,000 a month, or maybe even more. Okay, you have to maintain it. That's what people don't realize. It's like, okay, well, just because you get to 30K, all right, you have to build some sort of system to make sure it stays at that or even grows even more. Okay, and you need what I call like an operating system. And there's tons of operating systems out there. There's stuff like EOS. There's scalable. There's scaling up. There's all sorts of like operating systems. But a simple email marketing OS that I would recommend. This is like the daily things you're doing, or weekly or monthly things you're doing within your email marketing agency that basically keeps the trains on time. Okay, and what I recommend every email marketing agency build out once they scale, or they're approaching 30K a month or scaling above that, is they have a simple dashboard, a KPI dashboard that tracks all of the key KPIs in their business. So stuff like obviously revenue, profit, client happiness, team happiness, certain KPIs in your sales and marketing pipelines, certain KPIs around like client profitability, and the bandwidth of the team. So, I'd recommend like 5 to 10 KPIs. Okay. And then you want to implement something called daily stand ups, or daily huddles, where it's just like your team is meeting every single day, and then even doing weekly deep dives or weekly tactical calls. What this is going to do is prevent like major fires or little fires turning into like dumpster fires that cause client churn. Okay. If you can keep the team like just in a consistent rhythm, just meeting every day on a 15-minute daily stand up or a 45-minute call once a week where you go deeper into the problems. This is going to really help keep things really on track. All right. And then you need to get good at forecasting revenue. All right. That's another thing I see a lot of agencies drop the ball on. I'm like, okay, you're doing this in April. What are you going to do in May? What are you going to do in June? What are you going to do in August? Like, do you have that mapped out? Like, what's your pipeline looking like? So you need some sort of forecasting system. Um, Also, you need eventually, like, you will want to start doing quarterly and annual planning. Is really, really important, especially once you get to maintain this 30K mark. And then you might want to have everybody on your team that on a scorecard. I hear everybody talk about, how do I find A players? How do I find A players? Well, um, you really want to make sure the one thing to find an A player is get clear on what an A player is, and get clear on what every single role is within the agency, and get everybody on a scorecard. And then eventually, people come and go, just like clients churn, employees leave. Sometimes you might have to terminate them. Sometimes they get better job opportunities. Sometimes they move on to another industry or they get a better job offer. There's all sorts of reasons why team members move on. And so you'll want to make sure you have some sort of recruiting system to basically find or replace when people move on, so that there's no disruption in revenue or anything like that. Okay, so that's it. That is like, if you can master all of this, you can easily scale to 30K a month, with an e-commerce email marketing agency in today's market. Even in AI, I think it's never been a better time, especially if you can nail your positioning. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me here. You can email me, will@flowcandy.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there too. All right. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys next time.